Good morning. Today I'm putting together a little harvest box for a friend, and I thought I would use that as an opportunity to show you around the garden and show you what's growing. Everything's been very late for me this year. It is the end of July and we're just starting to get the production of peppers, aubergines. The courgettes have been going for a couple of weeks now. Corn is starting to come through. All the classic summer stuff has been really late for me because I had to replant my garden after the boars ripped most of it up. So this is kind of late, but thankfully we've had good water this year, so we can keep everything irrigated and keep it nice and cool and growing. If it wasn't for that, things would be struggling a lot more because it has been dry, it has been very hot. I don't know how long it's been without actual rain. I think it was May that we last had more than a couple of drops, so it's been a long time. Thankfully we had such a lot of rain earlier in the year that the spring is still flowing. We're still getting plenty of water into the deposits, so we're good. But yeah, I think a lot of people have been struggling this year. Anyway, we're going to start in the main garden, which is my original kind of raised bed, no dig garden. We've got stuff in most of the beds at the moment, so I'll give you a little look around at what we're growing. First of all, over here we're growing a couple of varieties of tomatoes. We're growing some beautiful salad tomatoes. These have been incredibly productive. I'm super happy with those, and they're really, really tasty. A little bit of salt and olive oil, and they are delicious. I eat at least one of these a day, like a big one. It's good to harvest these salad tomatoes when they're just turning red. That way they can finish ripening inside and they're safer from pests and getting any damage. These are also really heavy, so I try and take them off as soon as I can because we've already had a bit of damage on the trellis. It's quite hard to support them all. A big one of these can weigh like 500 grams, so yeah, it's a lot of weight to support. We've also got growing here these little yellow cherry tomatoes, which are a determinate variety, so they grow as a bush, which I really love because they're really easy to look after, no trellising required. They've been very prolific, and although they look cute and they're doing really well, they actually don't have a super interesting flavour. They're a bit bland, so I've been putting them just in sauces. Made a big batch of ketchup the other day. So yeah, I don't know if I would grow these again. So here we have 3 cherry tomato plants, and I've mostly done a better job at tying these up. I mean, not completely, but yeah, I need to sort that out. Yeah, I planted these in March actually, which is really early. Usually around here it's more like early mid-April, planting out stuff like that, but I decided to try a whole month earlier, mid-March this year, and they've actually done well. I think most of what I planted in mid-March survived. It took a really, really long time to get going, and I thought I had kind of wasted my time putting it in early, and I was even covering it with fleece a couple of nights when it got really cold. But then those plants that I planted earliest have actually done the best. So these cherry tomatoes here, the salad tomatoes, some of the peppers that we'll see in a minute, even though it seemed to not be doing anything for weeks and weeks and just kind of hanging on to life, I guess underground it was actually establishing its roots, and that meant that when the temperatures got hotter it just took off. I don't know, just a small experiment, but that's kind of what I've seen, so I will definitely try that again next year. And these cherry tomatoes are actually grafted cherry tomatoes, so I bought them as tiny little plants in a agricultural shop, and I would definitely buy more of those. Here in front of the deposit we have a bit of a mismatch of everything. For a long time I didn't know what I had planted in here because this was one of the beds that the boars dug up, so not a lot survived. Things got moved around. I did once have a garden plan. It kind of went out the window with the boars, so I was really hoping that some of these squash would be butternut squash because I did plant a lot, but I think possibly that's what the boars dug up. Yeah, some of these squash have taken a long time to get going and I couldn't see any fruit on them for a long time, but here's a butternut squash, so that's good. And then we've got another butternut squash plant down here, so I'm happy about that. But yeah, what seemed to do really well since sowing and planting out was Turk's turban squash. So I must have about 8 Turk's turban squash plants. We're going to get a lot of this squash this year. I've never planted this one before. I've never tasted it. I don't know if it's nice. I just thought it looked quite interesting and it just happened to be the one that's done really well. Also in this bed we have a couple more tomato varieties. We have this striped tomato, which is not ripe yet, but I think it's going to be kind of a blue-black tomato. Not quite sure on the variety. I think this was like a mysteriously labelled local variety given to me by a friend. So if you recognise this, let me know what you think it could be. And then we have these little pear-shaped cherry tomatoes, which are delicious. I would definitely grow these over the other yellow cherries. I think in the summer squash category, the winner this year is the patty pan. Again, it's something that I've never grown before and they're doing really well. I just think they're so beautiful. Since I'm selling quite a few boxes of veggies this year, I just wanted things that looked really lovely in the boxes as well as like your basic stuff. So that's why I was trying to experiment with a few more different varieties and also just to see what's doing well. I'm really into seed saving this year as well, so I've been reading Joseph Lofthouse's Landrace Gardening. I need to bring a knife out here actually and properly cut these off with a little bit of stalk, and these trousers are not very practical. A rounder one. But yeah, I've been reading Joseph Lofthouse's Landrace Gardening. I massively recommend it for anyone interested in food self-sufficiency, security, saving seeds. It's been completely eye-opening. I was always a little bit scared about saving seeds, whether it was worth it, with the risk of cross-pollination, etc. And he's totally revolutionized my view on seed saving and cross-pollination. It's actually all about embracing cross-pollination, understanding how it works, but embracing it and actually encouraging locally adapted kind of varieties that grow well in your particular conditions. And a lot of things that people tend to worry about with cross-pollination are actually, in many cases, not really an issue anyway. So yeah, I'm definitely going to let some of these fully develop and get the seeds from them because, yeah, they've done amazingly. So corn, I've got a couple of patches of corn this year. I've got this main patch here. I've got a few individual plants dotted around in some other beds. The boars dug up a lot of those young ones. So I'm not sure whether they will really pollinate properly, and I didn't replant them, but I've got a good patch here of... This is a variety from Catalonia called Blat Moro de la Creu, I believe. Blat is corn in Catalan. Let's see how it's doing. So this variety, I believe, is traditionally eaten in like a kind of soup, a stew dish, which looks delicious. We had some in a chicken stew the other day. It was very nice. Anyway, that's just to show you what a beautiful colour. Not fully pollinated, this one, missing a few kernels, but it's still beautiful. So for harvesting corn, you want to see that all the tassels are kind of dry. And if it starts kind of pulling away from the stalk as well, that's another sign. And I actually don't know with corn whether the more you harvest, the more it produces, or it's just kind of the cobs that it's got or what it's got. But anyway, harvesting it when it's ready just helps protect it from pests and things. So let's have a look at this one. And I will take all of this stuff to the donkeys. They will love all of that. Wow, look at that. That's beautiful. So I'm definitely going to be saving seeds from this as well. I think this particular plant is a contender for seed saving. I don't know if you've ever noticed this before on corn, but some of the older varieties have these things called air roots, which sometimes you don't see on more modern varieties. And they're actually nitrogen fixing from the air. I had noticed these before on some varieties, but I'd never really known what they did. So we have 2 more-ish rows of beds in this main garden. One row is kind of fully converted into just trees now, because I am trying to turn this space more into a perennial herbaceous sort of area, and then do my main growing over in more straightforward, simple rows with sprinklers and with exudation tape and simpler irrigation and maintenance. Anyway, we've got a row of trees in the middle. We've got a vine, which has always been here. We've got a couple of orange trees. I've planted a couple of fig trees. Everything's doing really well. Just looking for some cucumbers in this bed. That's something that has not done well this year, and I was quite restrained with the cucumbers, and I only planted 5 plants because normally they just go crazy and we get way too many cucumbers, and there is actually a limit to how many cucumbers you can eat, especially since Mauro doesn't like them. But none of the plants are really doing that well. I have harvested a few cucumbers, but just not what I would be expecting. I think maybe they're struggling with some kind of disease as well. I don't know. I've been struggling with these beds because they're underneath the loquat tree, and no matter how much I water, the soil is always very dry. The loquat tree, I think, is taking everything. So it's been a struggle to know what to plant here, what will do all right. Stink bug. Sorry, just had to squish that stink bug. Yeah, it's also very shady, which can be a good thing, but I mean, the chart's done okay. Got some physalis actually doing quite well. I bought it from a plant nursery and I planted it last year, and it died back over the winter and it shot up again this spring. So I love that. Maybe I'll just try and grow more of that here because it does seem to be doing quite well. Chard struggling with the lack of light back here, I think. So this is my new garden area. And this was kind of like a last minute add-on to the whole garden plan for this year. I originally rotivated a new patch for potatoes, and that was kind of going to be my expansion. And then I realized I needed more room for potatoes. And then I thought, I've got a nice kind of wedge-shaped patch here. Why not just rotivate the whole lot and make my garden even bigger? So that's what I did. So I initially planted up this garden at the start of May, which was a little late, could have been earlier, but I did it at the beginning of May. And I then replanted everything at the beginning of June because wild boars came through and basically ripped everything up. So I had originally planted a lot of stuff that I'd grown from seed. I can't even remember what I had now, but I had lots of interesting varieties. I had a whole plan. I was really excited for that version of the garden. After the boars came through, I didn't have time to re-sow anything from seed. Well, the sweet corn is from seed, but I didn't have time to sow anything else. So I just went to the market and I bought the basic sort of stuff that you find at the market. So nothing terribly exciting in this garden, but it is doing really well. And I really like that it's given me the opportunity to try exudation tape. That's been a really good learning experience this year. And I've actually also really enjoyed growing in these simple rows as well. I found it very easy to maintain, very straightforward, very accessible. So yeah, it's been a really good experiment. Let's have a look at some of the things that are growing. So we have lots of courgette. I did do a big harvest of this just yesterday. So there's not a lot, oops, not the flower off. There's lots of little ones, but nothing to harvest there. Okay, I think I'll have that one before it gets too much bigger, because they are just so nice when they're kind of this size. I'll have that one too. Yeah, I really need to bring a knife out here. Something that's been quite good has been to plant squash, at least the vining kind of squash, at the end of rows so that they can just go crazy and expand onto the pathway. And this one is coming up the tree. I mean, these are Turk's turbans again. Everything's a Turk's turban. You can see it starting to suffer from powdery mildew, but I don't really mind that. I think you can't really avoid it as summer goes on. It just happens, and by the time it's really a problem, the fruit will have fully developed, so it's not an issue for me. Yeah, we have some beautiful chard. We have watermelon, again, starting to have some little fruits on it, but it's very late for the watermelon. We do have a lot of bindweed in this garden. I used to get really annoyed about bindweed, really sort of try and eradicate it and get stressed out because it's impossible to eradicate it, but now I don't really care about it at all. I just come along and try and keep it under control, make sure it's not strangling and suffocating any plants, but I don't stress about it. And actually the best time to get rid of stuff like this is kind of now, actually, when it has started to flower and it's just about to make like its seed heads. You don't want it to make its seed heads, but at this point, when it's put all of its energy into flowering and trying to produce seed, is when it's a good time to pull up all of that above ground growth and weaken the roots. So that's what I'm doing. Now the aubergines, these are the ones I bought from the market, and I was quite surprised to see what they're growing into. Look, they're turning into these long kind of pale things, which, yeah, I don't know what kind of aubergine that is. I was expecting just your classic, like, round purple ones, but there you go. I have actually planted a lot of basil that I grew from seed in here. I'm hoping to get an enormous basil harvest by the end of summer and have lots of pesto to freeze. We've got some peppers in here as well. They, again, peppers for me just always take so long to get going, and it didn't help that I planted these a lot later than I would normally have done. More basil over there, basil everywhere. I put basil in every gap I could find. A few beetroot left in here. I originally transplanted a lot of beetroot into this area and it did really well. Oh my goodness, look. See, that's what they could all be like if they hadn't all got dug up by the boars. Look at that. I think that's the biggest beetroot I've ever grown. That's amazing. We have some melons starting to come through here. This one is not ready yet, but it's growing visibly by the day, and I've spotted a few more in here as well. Little one down there, there's another one somewhere over there. I don't know if you remember me sowing carrot seed in amongst this sweet corn. Well, as you can see, I have not kept on top of the weeding, but the carrots are coming up. I don't know if they'll do anything if I don't weed this area, and I'm not planning to weed this area, so we shall see. the sweet corn here. I think I have about 40 plants in here maybe, and they're starting to make cobs. It does look like we'll get a good harvest from them, so I'm quite excited about that. Right, what else have we got going on here that's interesting? It's not very interesting, this area. It's just tomatoes, some kale that I grew from seed, loads of courgettes, peppers. Yeah, like I said, it's just the very kind of boring basic stuff. And we did have 2 more rows of potatoes here in this area, which I just dug up this morning, so I'm gonna show you that in another video because I feel like we're getting on for time in this one. But yeah, we got a really good harvest from the potatoes. There's a little sneak peek of all the potatoes gone. All right, so this is what we've got in the veggie box. We've got a big bunch of celery, we've got cherry tomatoes, curly kale, a big bunch of chard, and we've got fresh herbs. Today we've got parsley, basil and sage, 1.5 kilos of potatoes, we've got salad tomatoes, some patty pans and some courgettes. Okay, I've just the other day finished harvesting the potatoes from my main field, and that has left me with 3 long beds that are empty, and I'm going to sow some green manure in these beds. So this green manure should sprout quickly and it should be ready to cut down within 6 weeks, and then I can just leave it on the soil as ground cover. While it's growing, it will be protecting the soil so that it's not bare and exposed. Then once it's cut down, I can leave it on top of the soil and it will continue to protect the ground like a kind of mulch until I'm ready to plant. And then what people would normally do is to till it in. As a green manure, it will be adding organic matter and nutrients back into the soil. So I might do that when I'm ready to plant in it again, or I might just, if the area hasn't got too overgrown with other kinds of weeds, I might just leave it as mulch. We'll have to see. Alright, I'm not sure what's going to work better. The right kind of rake but without a handle, or the wrong kind of rake that does have a handle. Potato. Just really surprised how many potatoes I'm uncovering with the rake. I must have missed so many, some big ones as well. I'm thinking I probably should have gone over with the rake thoroughly before sowing the green manure seed, but I was thinking that I was just gonna lightly kind of cover the seeds with some soil and break up any clumps. Didn't realise that I might have missed so many potatoes. I can see some ants already making off with some of these seeds, so I hope they leave us some. Look at them. Alright, I'm just gonna sow the rest of the packet, just in case I ended up digging it all in too deeply by searching for all the extra potatoes. This entire packet was like €10 and it's meant to be good for like 300 square meters, which behind me is like 3 rows of 20 meters long, 1 meter wide, so sown way more than we need, but hopefully it'll also be a bit of insurance against the ants. Okay, so here are my beautifully weeded sweet potatoes, less than 2 weeks later. As you can see, they need weeding again. Yep, I guess I'll just keep on weeding them until they get big enough to kind of smother the weeds, which they should do, because they should really kind of take over and vine over everywhere. Some of them are starting to, here you go, see this one is starting to make more of a vine. So yeah, and in the meantime, I'll just keep coming and clearing out space. On the plus side, the ants did leave us some seed because the green manure is coming up. You can see all of this stuff. That looks like vetch coming up there. Lots of grass too, but really pleased with that. Alright, a little update from the greenhouse bathroom because we've had some questions about how it's doing. It's doing alright. Haven't really got anything edible out of here. A few strawberries earlier in the spring, but what seems to be doing well is actually the ornamental stuff. I mean, this is a passion fruit, so hopefully we'll get some passion fruits on here, but at the moment it's just in a bit of a race with the jasmine to get up to the trellis, and it's actually climbing across the front of the rocks here as well, which is nice. I'll be happy if it can kind of cover up the rocks, that'll look nice. The jasmine's doing alright. I do have to water in here every day, but not as much as I thought I would have to. I think it does get very hot, but it's also quite humid in here, so maybe there's not as much like transpiration as you might think. The avocado tree has not survived, it was just too hot for it, I think. The nasturtiums, also too hot. This thing, whatever that is, seems to be absolutely loving it. The ivy and the fern seem to be alright, which is again quite surprising because I would have thought they were more like cool temperature things. And I did plant some tomatoes in here just to see what would happen. I mean, the growth has been crazy, but in terms of tomatoes, we're not getting a lot. I mean, this is literally the first tomato I've picked off that. Yeah, I don't know if it's just too hot for it, or maybe with the lack of breeze, I need to be in here a bit more often, just like flicking the flowers, make sure they're pollinating. I don't know. I'm hoping for a late summer burst of fruit from these plants, but let's try this. I mean, that is really nice. Alright, I think I'm going to leave it there for this video. I hope you've enjoyed that little tour. I don't know why I don't do these more often, because that was quite fun to do, and I'm sure I will enjoy looking back on it in the future. But for now, I think that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.